Story time! So in today's video, I'll be using my life story to show you what happens if you don't have a clear why. What happens when your expectations are a little bit off. So let's get into it. When I moved to Costa Rica, I was running from stress. And I thought all I had to do is get to a different country where everything was slower and people were, nicer and I wasn't working right away. And I thought that would eliminate my stress. So in last week's video, I left off me arriving to Costa Rica. And so as I'm in my beautiful house, in my small gated community, I'm like, oh, I've arrived. And quickly I found out, looking back, this was the reason why many weddings are so successful and many marriages completely fail. And you're probably watching the video like, huh? Wait, stick with me. Don't turn the channel. Let me explain. So weddings are really designed. And so when you have a wedding, you know the colors, you're visualizing who's going to be there, where they're going to be standing, how your wedding dress is going to fit, what your partner's going to say, what you're going to say to your partner, what dates are there. And you really have a true visualization of what your wedding is going to be. And just like me, you're like, okay, we're doing it, we're pressing, and we finally do it, and we arrive, and then we get married, and then it's just like, oh. And yeah, you have a little plan, a little glimpse of what you're going to do. You have the idea of, okay, well, we're going to go to the beach, of course, it's Costa Rica. But then you sit there and say, well, it's a Monday, and it's raining, or replace raining with my loved one is tired. Maybe I'm tired. Or we just don't feel like traveling today. Whatever the excuse is, the question becomes, now what? You've arrived in utopia, but you don't have a clear why for being there. It was for the beach, but what happens on non-beach days? What happens when you don't feel like going out? Where and what is your purpose? But little did I know, while I left my hectic corporate life and moved to my utopia of Costa Rica, without a purpose, I would be dealing with a different type of stress. The stress that I was dealing with was internal. Because, first of all, I was used to everything moving like this, as fast as it could. And so all of a sudden, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to run to work. I didn't have to go anywhere. I had a cook, and so that meant that I didn't even have to go figure out what I needed to fix for dinner, and it just started driving me crazy. And I couldn't figure out why. And the reason why that it turns out was I really was lacking purpose. So I had found value and identity in myself by actually going to work, providing for the family, and doing that stuff. But when it was all taken care of and there was nothing for me to do, and I didn't have anything to fill in the day, it actually drove me more crazy. Who would have thought you're living the life of your dream and you're having anxiety because there's not enough anxiety? So in the United States, you had a purpose. Maybe you didn't like it or love it. One of your purposes was going to work. You felt productive, hopefully. And, even if you weren't, you were bringing home the bacon, so to speak, to, ensure that your family had the life of their dreams and the schools and the neighborhoods and the cars and everything that they wanted to have. And you had a goal, you had a purpose, and it was a daily purpose that marched you and got you out of bed, even when you didn't want to make sure that your needs were and your family's needs were satisfied. But in Costa Rica, if you moved and transitioned, and let's say you don't have a job and you don't really have, a purpose for being in Costa Rica, like myself, things start to get very interesting and not in a good way. So what did I do? Because I didn't have enough to fill my day, I started filling it with stuff that didn't even make sense anymore. And my day was becoming hectic again. And so I'm going back and forth into these wild extremes of things that really didn't make sense, but it kept me busy, and then just complete absolutely nothingness. And I didn't have a purpose, and I thought busyness was my purpose. Work was my identity, and I needed something more. And it wasn't until I was able to solve this that I was actually able to focus on things that were important to me and important to my family. Speaking about relationships, this was another thing that was hard for me because in the United States, my family gets together constantly. There's birthday parties, there's get-togethers, there's family reunions. My friends, the same way, we're getting together, we're playing games, we're having food, we're having movie night, or whatever it is. And there was a lot of stuff here. And you don't quite think about it. When you move to a different country, you're starting from zero. And so there's all this anxiety that you just don't know what to do with. Normally that when you're anxious or you're scared or whatever, you just, hey, come over, I gotta talk to you about something. You don't have that option. Now, for me, I had a year here and then there was the pandemic. So I had to transform regardless into a new form of communication. And it was actually a lot of it had to deal with Zoom and talking to the people in the United States and slowly adding more Ticos in. But yes, I will have to admit that most of the part was realizing that I had to change. And that's part of the journey. I would say, it is definitely community. Yes, relationships, community. But let me get to this second part. This is the other side of community. So I wanted to join a church, and when I got here, I found a church that was all Spanish speaking, and I did find some English speakers that helped me understand the Spanish that my pastor was preaching, because it was not plain straight Spanish. There was a lot of slang words, as we would say, pachuco, and it was kind of confusing to begin with. And so what it had me do was actually start relationships because I needed someone to translate. So then I was getting invited to the get-togethers, the church get-together. Boom, the pandemic hit, and I decided to go online to Transformation Church, which happens to be in the United States. Now, the benefit of this particular church and churches like it was there was a huge online community, and it expanded during the pandemic, and it still is. And so while it's worldwide, now I have friends in Mexico, in New Jersey, in California. I'm here in Costa Rica. I've even talked to several people on the other side of the world where it was completely nice. It allowed me to expand my community, not just here in Costa Rica, but worldwide. This is something that is deeply on my heart, is to connect the nation. Yes, my primary focus right now is connecting Costa Rica, and I want to do that in such a big way. Connecting the nations first by dialoguing is a beautiful thing when done right. So lucky for me, I lived in a small community where, let's say, half of the people spoke English or some level of English, but unfortunately that half was, mostly the married women. So that meant on guys' nights, and I did go to a few of them, I couldn't understand anything. What were they talking about? I heard the word football, so it must be soccer. And at that point, my Spanish wasn't up, to par. And so even when I had the lovely time of going out to the beaches with the fellas, I was just there. And don't get me wrong, I had a good time, but it did not allow me to have a good community. And that was something that I really didn't quite envision. Because you think, okay, if I don't understand Spanish, and listen closely, I'm not telling you to wait before to go to Costa Rica when you become completely fluent and native in Spanish. If you don't know Spanish, you will have to get used to that there are going to be certain things that are going to be impacted, such as your relationships and community. Today, you don't even think about it. You probably had the same friends or a good number of friends, probably for 20, maybe 30 years, or, you've at least had a small subset of family members that you can actually talk to. So when you're having a problem, when you want to relieve some stress, you just call up and they stop by, or you go by there. Well, nobody really tells you, or you don't really think about it, unless maybe you do, maybe it will just be that, you're kind of starting over, and you need to balance how you're going to do your friendships. Because if you run to the whole all expat side of things, then you really don't actually get the full culture of what it is like to be, a Tico or a Costa Rica in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is not the one pill that fixes everything. My assumptions were wrong. And so I had to adjust and realize that short time frame of me being an expert in Spanish was more like this. And actually, I'm still learning, so it's more like this. Costa Rica allowed me to reset in peace, even through all the chaotic stuff. And I will say that it has been a blessing from the Lord, from Costa Rica, because one of my things that helped me, in living here is the fact that when I look out the window and I see all the blessings that God created, the animals, the trees, the colors, the greenery, the volcanoes, all that stuff, it just inspires me to say, I have a lot to be grateful. And Costa Rica really does that for me. I had to learn while I was living here to kind of let that stuff go. I had to stop talking to myself of stress and anxiety and fear and all those different things. And I had to take time to do that work. And that work doesn't just get fixed by being in Costa Rica. And it's not going to look like the United States, not on the outside and not on the inside. I will say my life was not perfect. My life is not perfect. And there's trials and tribulations that happen all the time to all of us. And there's things that you're going to have to do and you're going to have to adjust. This is a given. So if you're interested in learning more about moving and living in Costa Rica, check out these 2 videos and I will see you on the other side.